allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Bowman. Present. Alderman Dahlman. Present. Alderman Milner. Present. Alderman Coburn.
Here.
Alderman Dickerson.
Here.
Alderman Long.
Here.
Alderman Stahl.
Here.
Alderman Stafford.
Here.
Mayor Hassey.
Here, and we do have a quorum. Tonight we have no ceremonial matters, so we will move on to the public participation. I will open that at this time for anyone who has anything to bring before this board that is not already on our regularly scheduled agenda. Mr. Cotton, you have something?
May I?
Well, sure.
Well, I'm not gonna walk clear up here because the gentleman I wanna talk to is right back here. I found out this past weekend that if you are selling things on the internet or on eBay and stuff like that, that we have the opportunity to go up to the police department. And the police department will come out and be there while your transaction, so that you don't get into a lot of this stuff. So I would like to thank John, our Chief Hoffner, about it being able to do that for us, and I think that is a very commendable thing to do.
Very good. Is there anyone else tonight? Seeing no one, I will close public participation and move on to the approval of the minutes from the special meeting of the Board of Alderman from February 16th, 2016.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Coburn and a second from Alderman Dickerson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to the minutes from the Board of Alderman meeting from February 22nd.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion from Alderman Dickerson, second from Alderman Coburn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Moving on to our agenda. Item A, we have a public hearing for a special use permit application of Robert and Danielle Welch for the establishment of a business that would sell retail items, specifically landscaping, erosion control tools, as well as provide a location for an erosion control contractor at 3003 Cantrell Road. I will open the public hearing for anyone who would like to speak on this. I believe the business owners are with us tonight if they have anything they'd like to add. You're not required. If you wanted to, you are more than
I think we're good.
all right.
You don't want to stand up and introduce yourself or anything?
They did come to, they've been to planning and zoning. It sounds like it will be a very good business, and I think it will make a nice addition to an empty building. But again, if anybody would like to speak, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and we will move on to Council Bill 018.
Council Bill 018 is an ordinance granting a special use permit to Robert and Danielle Welch for the purpose of establishing a business that would sell retail items as well as provide an area for a contracting business located at 3003 Cantrell Road, Harrisonville, Missouri. First reading, Council Bill 018.
Good evening, Rick.
Good evening. What this is basically why it's a special use permit is why it's before you today. It is sort of a mix between a light industrial type use, contractor's type yard, and a retail establishment. And since there's really no overlapping zoning district in our zoning ordinance, it's coming before you with a special use permit. Basically, if you want to make it real simple, half the business or half the building is going to be for retail, half for a contractor's yard for erosion control. The adjacent zoning is all basically commercial C2 service business district and I-49 over to the north of it. The conditions to be incorporated into the use permit would be dealing with the mixed type use, the driveway and parking, which is established already. Any additional have to meet city standards, paved, curbed. The storage yard may remain gravel typically as storage yards are like this, but it has to be screened. Ownership is to these applicants. Doesn't mean that a new owner can't take over the business, but they'd have to come back for a use permit. The structure can be expanded up to about 2,500 square feet additional. However, if it's going to be expanded anymore, they'd have to come back for another special use permit. And the lighting needs to be directed down and away from adjacent properties. Both the planning commission and staff recommend approval contingent upon meeting conditions in the SPP. Any questions?
Are they okay with they have to have?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Historical Society can look into the cave.
All right. All right, if there's no discussion, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and move Council Bill 018 to the second reading.
I make that motion.
I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson and a second from Alderman Long.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Dahlman,
Aye.
Alderman Stoll,
Aye.
Alderman Stafford,
Aye.
Alderman Bowman,
Aye.
Alderman Long,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Coburn.
Aye.
Council 018 is an ordinance granting a special use permit to Robert Daniel Welch for the purpose of establishing a business that would sell retail items as well as provide an area for contracting business located at 3003 Cantrell Road, Harrisonville, Missouri, second by Council 018.
Alderman Stafford,
Aye.
Alderman Long,
Aye.
Alderman Stoll,
Aye.
Alderman Bowman,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Coburn,
Aye.
Alderman Dahlman.
Aye.
And Council Bill 018 becomes ordinance 03354. Robert and Danielle, welcome to Harrisonville.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to Council Bill 019.
Council 019 is a preliminary plat of Deborah Shands part of Housing Plus LLC for Harrisonville Villas Lot 1 located west of Jefferson Parkway and north of Community Center, Harrisonville, Missouri. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Resolution.
It wasn't specified, so I wrote it there so you wouldn't forget.
Basically, it is 1 10-acre lot, is what we're looking at. Directly north of Community Center, infrastructure-wise, there would be the beginning of a collector roadway at this location. This roadway would eventually end up connecting up with Timber Drive over off of 291. Easements are dedicated. Actually, this is sort of what the site plan layout would look like. This would be the Timber Drive. This would be interior access for this because it's a multifamily zoned R3. That would end up being a private. Everything would be addressed off of timber. On the site, there would be fire lines, public water lines that would go over to the site and service fire hydrants. There would be approximately 1,300 feet of sanitary sewer put in with this project. And the stormwater master plan would be required on it. Both the staff and the planning commission recommend approval contingent upon meeting city development standards. Are there any questions?
That Timber Street,
Yes.
and going out and looking at it, I would think if we would run it from 291 across, that it would come through right about where that road goes through our park there,
If it were
where the 4-H building is. And so this would make it half a mile north,
it would,
and what, you're gonna curve it?
yes. If it, and you're correct, if it were a grid system and it was just straight as an arrow, at that point, it would come out probably right around Wood Park driveway. This would curve to the south.
Well, the way I was looking at it, without any leaves on the trees, you could look through and get a line of sight through, and you know where the 4-H building is there? To me, that road we've got going right through there would be a direct line through.
Okay.
And to me, I couldn't understand why we wanted to go way up north and curve it over
And
to that road, when we've got other roads over there in that development that we could hook into, like, what is it, Hillside or whatever, you know, the one on the north side that does have the bit where you could extend it out through.
right. Keep in mind, if you drive the roads by Hillside and Del Mar and stuff like that, those roads are about 24 feet wide.
Yeah.
Your standard residential roadway is 28 feet wide. That 28-foot wide road handles about 1,000 cars a day, and then it's at capacity. A 24-foot wide road would handle fewer and fewer cars. What this would be, it would be a 37-foot wide road would handle at least a few thousand cars, maybe upwards 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, depending on how you manage access, and if you restrict parking and stuff like that. Now, that being said, if you look at the Wellborn property, it is hundreds of acres. And if you develop it out fully, you're going to need higher end roadways to come out onto 291 Highway, Jefferson Parkway, and Waters Road. We have to have collector roadways come out there. One of the things that through the years, what Harrisonville has done, if you look along Commercial Street and along 291, there's really no collector roadways or roadways at all that pop out to the Wellborn property. Through the years, we've sort of been our worst enemy, on that. We haven't thought ahead. Consequently, what we've done is when Timber Drive was first put in on the other side, we also were looking at good spacing for traffic signals because we knew the collector roadways would be higher functioning roadways. That being said, that's what we're trying to do, is get good connections between point A and point B here rather than cutting ourselves off. Because what it's going to do is make for substandard development on the Wellborn property if we don't start thinking ahead. And that's the reason why we're putting this road and starting it at this point in time, is we need to do that for everybody's sake.
And what happened to the bill when we issued a building permit for the hospital, when they were gonna Timberlane Road and go to the back end of the hospital? The county, every time I bring it up, well, we don't own that land. Well, they shouldn't have promised doing it when we issued them the building permit in the first place.
The road was never planned on being put past where it was when the hospital was developed. We have a conceptual plan as to where it will go, and as development happens, that road will end up going farther north and farther to the east. But unless the city has the money to do it, or the county or somebody has the money to send it back.
It was my understanding that the county was gonna put it in so we'd have more than one entrance to the hospital.
And eventually it will happen. There will be a loop around that.
Well, we'll probably won't have a hospital out there.
Well, I hope it stays longer than that.
If I remember, Rick, the architect was at the meeting and he was fine with it. I mean, they had no issue with the road. I think originally there was a different spot for the road, but we got that worked out and.
Yeah.
And, but as far as having the road, he didn't seem to miss a beat, so.
Right.
And bringing that scenario up, is there gonna be a connection, walkways between this development and the community center?
They are going to provide their part of it. Now, eventually, the city will have to sort of complete the sidewalk end up the walkway end of it, but they will provide their part. Sidewalks will be included in this development on Jefferson and also on Timber, because we've got to start making things, especially closer to the parks, easier to walk, more walkable, safer.
Well, it's my dream that we're gonna help the Silver Slippers program out there with this, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
A motion from Alderman Coburn and a second from Alderman Dickerson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council Bill 019 becomes Resolution R012. Council Bill 020.
Council 020 is a resolution to show support of the Board of Alderman for an application of grant funds from the Florida Department of Transportation Division Highway Safety Status Special Traffic Enforcement Program, authorizing the city administrator to execute said application for grant funds.
Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Board of Alderman. Before you tonight is our annual STEP grant application we fulfill every year. We've participated in the program since 2001. The state of Missouri would like us to come before the board to give your support for these grants. The grants are non-matching. They pay 100%. They reimburse us on a monthly basis. We're applying for $14,000 this year, to include $6,000 for sobriety checkpoints or DWI enforcement, $4,000 for hazardous moving violations, and $4,000 for speed violations. Just asking that you will sign this application. We've got one for each. Show support for our grants. Entertain any questions?
Looks like you might be good to
Pass
go.
it around.
Well, I will start here so it ends up over there and we can do it to the clerk. Thank you very much.
While that's being passed,
Thank
I
you.
would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Milner and a second from Alderman Dickerson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council Bill 020 becomes Resolution R013. Council Bill 021.
Council Bill 021 is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Golden Valley Tractor for the purchase of one 72-inch mid-mount finish mower in an amount not to exceed $20,330.
Meeting.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. As stated in the memo, the equipment scheduled for replacement is a mid-mount 72-inch finish mower for the park system. This mower takes care of our ball fields, and as well as mowing other areas, field dragging, other utility needs. Bids were sent out to local vendors and was listed on the city's website and social media. We received 6 bids for the finish mower. 2 bids did not meet specification. And the low bid is from Golden Valley Tractor, which is in Harrisonville. Total cost is $20,330, and this is $1,670 below the budget amount. Parks and Recreation staff and Park Board approved of the purchase and seek your approval, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
I'm sure makes it easier to get it serviced if it's right here in town, doesn't it? Yes. Any questions or discussion on it? See, I think that thing gets a lot of hours on it, so I'm sure it's well past its
Definitely.
due time. We'll see no questions. All right. Another motion from Alderman Milner, a second from Alderman Dahlman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And approved. Council Bill 021 becomes Resolution R014. Council Bill 022.
Council 022 is a resolution authorizing the city administrator to execute a design-build contract with Cass Burns and McDonald to make repairs to the digester plant basin floor at the wastewater treatment plant at the cost not to exceed $845,450.
Gary, I see you didn't kill a lot of money off that number. You didn't.
Oh, we got about 30,000 off of it.
Yeah.
We're asking for the contract to be tabled. We've got some discussion going on in language. So we'll bring it back to the board at the next board.
I see nothing. We want to be sure it's all good, so. All right. We will move on. Council Bill 023.
Council Bill 023 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harrisonville as follows, Chapter 700, Section 700-460, by establishing new rates for municipal water services for Council Bill 023.
Long time no see.
That's true. Good evening. Last board meeting, we had a discussion on the water rates. We were informed that the unit chief would not accept our city water rate as being proposed and had recommended a higher base rate, lower volume charges. The board expressed concerns being dictated when initially they indicated they would not do that. I expressed that concern and the board asked me to go back to the SRF and express your concern. I did that, and she went in and talked to her director, and the director agreed with the city of Harrisonville and has authorized that we base rates as we had proposed at $13.89 for the first 1,000, and $8.71 would be an acceptable rate. And staff is recommending to proceed with that.
Now tonight, we are just having first reading. We
It's
still
just
have
first reading.
other requirements we must meet, so tonight would be just the first reading on this. I did speak with the representative from DNR, and she said that typically their requirements are 100% on your initial fee, because they want to ensure that even if they don't sell a drop of water, they can still make their debt payment. And that a lot of cities don't necessarily have the funds available to start a project, so they want to be sure they're well covered. And she did mention, I asked, did our previous history with them have a impact on this? And she said absolutely, that our experience with the water treatment plant and having SRF funding before played a significant role in making an exception to this. They said it's not something they typically do to make an exception, so I was very happy to hear they were open to our suggestion. So.
Just to clarify that a little bit, we don't have SRF experience in the water side, but we have it on the wastewater side. The drinking water chief that originally was telling us that we had to do the front-loaded area, she's only working on the water side, and our wastewater background and experience got more appreciation as it went up the ladder. We looked at the supervisor that looks over the whole department, not just the drinking water part of it. But the end result is that we've gotten the approval for the lower base rate, and that, as the mayor mentioned, we'll have first reading only, and second reading won't be for probably another month, when we have had the opportunity for the public hearing and the public meetings on the rate structure and the capital investments and that type of
Facility
stuff.
plan and the environmental impact.
So this is yet another step in the SRF process for first reading only of this rate ordinance.
And if I recall, we're on schedule to get financing in August, is that?
Or sooner, but it's,
That's the rough estimate. I
right,
mean,
it's a process. 30 days after the public meeting, they will make their environmental determination. And at that point in time, they will approve plans to be put out for bid, and there's 30 days for the bid process. We tentatively award it, and then we sell the bonds, which can take up to 60 days to sell the bonds. So it looks like it may be September, August, September. Could be a little quicker if they don't have a problem. The good thing is, had some staff members attending the rural water, they indicated that the bond market generally drops a little bit in this next quarter, and that we'd be going out on the market in a good time, so we may get more favorable rates.
so we are on schedule now.
We are slowly moving forward. It's,
Well, nothing with that is ever quick, but
That's correct. But we're also, at the same time, they're also, DNR is also doing a plan review of our contract bid specs.
right, and that's, the plans are under review. That'll take, they were sent in the 1st of March, so it'll be March and April. We should get approval of those by the 1st of May. Again, we won't be authorized to move forward until 30 days after the public meeting, which is scheduled for the second meeting in April at 5:30. And I'll be putting the public notice out after approval tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll be sending a notice to the paper for that public meeting, public hearing for April 18th.
very good. Any questions? First reading. All right, moving on,
Can I get one other thing? I'm sorry.
sure.
We're also, we have to get support from our state legislators. So we drafted a letter for Mayor Hassick to sign and solicit support from Representative Faust and Senator Emery. And that has to be in his hand before they'll sell bonds.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, Council Bill 025. Oh, I'm sorry, 24, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead one. Yes, 24.
Council Bill 024 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harrisonville, Chapter 700, Section 400.480 by establishing new rates for sewer services. First reading, Council Bill 024.
As part of the budget process that we had for the 2016 budget that we went through last fall, staff prepared and submitted an ordinance on utility rates, which included the water rates, the sewer rates, and the refuse rates. And then we got into a series of discussions about what the water rates would be primarily. That ordinance ended up being vetoed, and we've gone through all the changes that we just previously talked about. So when we were bringing these things back, we separated those three things that were on one ordinance, water, sewer, and refuse, into three separate ordinances because we weren't sure what the time frame for doing those all were. But the board had previously considered those, and so we're bringing it back to you. And the difference is, number one, that they're on separate ordinances for ease of consideration, and number two, that they are slightly different amounts. And Director McCoy is here to share that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This evening before you is your sewer rates. Just as a kind of a recap, you remember we went through these earlier and revised all those numbers, and they're significantly less than what was originally proposed as part of the budget development that Administrator Goldman just outlined. So remember that these rates are established to meet our debt coverage, our operations, and that ratio that we need to have over and above, our debt requirements for replacement and improvements to the system. And to keep these rates at a minimal, if we do them on an annual basis, that keeps them at a smaller increase instead of skipping a year or skipping 2 or 3 years and all of a sudden we have to go up 2% or 3% or whatever. So this evening, these are proposed as a 1% increase based on the current average residential water consumption of about 3,500 gallons a month. It's a 36-cent increase a month for a residential user, approximately $4.32. So again, it's a small increase of only 1%. It's an effort to keep them so it's easier for a homeowner or a business to put those in their business plans and into their monthly budgets, as a small increase as we go forward, and in an effort to not have to raise them, 2 times maybe next year when we're looking at this process again. So that's kind of the philosophy that I take to this. We look and we grow a little bit because our expenses do go up every year. That's just part of inflation, that's part of cost of living, and everybody deals with that in a business and in a household. So before you this evening is that minimal increase, and we keep it small so that it's easier to manage, as we grow and go forward. Questions, comments?
I'd like to point out that, I understand the small increments, but a lot of times what people will see is they don't care what the amount is, what they see is the word increase. That's the first thing they read. I know that there's 2 ways of doing this, much like the sales tax levy. You can either adjust it each year, or you can kind of let it average for a few years, and if it trends one way or the other, you make an adjustment as the trend goes. I can see this both directions. As small as the increase is suggested, it's possible that yes, we could have a higher one next year that could be double, or it could be maybe 1.5 waters. We don't know what water will do at this point. Water and sewer, right now we're not getting a lot of moisture, so it's hard to say what this summer will hold. It could be a very heavy water usage this summer, because if we don't have rain, everybody's going to be watering and hosing and trying to cool off in the swimming pools and evaporating. So I would highly recommend, I think that these bills, we can have the first reading tonight and bring back the second reading when we do the water. That gives everyone plenty of time to kind of mull over these and think and make your decision for looking at that. But, I'm fine with having first readings on both tonight and do them all 3, the second reading the same night. So, okay, very good. Did you need to explain the sewer rate as well, or the trash?
The trash rate or the
Refuse.
refuge rate works on kind of the same principle, which is again, if we take the mayor's recommendation as first read tonight, it's a minimal increase, and it's an increase this year primarily to fund the citywide cleanup that had been paid out of the general fund in prior years. Also, the refuge fund does not currently meet our policy on 2 months of cash reserves, and so this would also help us to build that. And we may see, comments made as far as policy development and following policies as we work through some other processes that are taking place with the state audit, and financial audit has already talked about some of those policies not being adhered to. And when we looking forward, when you're looking at grants, you're looking at financing and some other things, that's one of those things that those agencies look at, is like, are you following your own policies? Are you doing what you've outlined that you want to do? You've set these up, so are you actually making that happen? And so, just going forward, keep that in mind, when we're trying to manage, cash flow, manage, our customers' needs, and we don't know what the trash contract's gonna do next year. It may, if it goes up, we have an option to go out to bid. There's lots of things that can happen with the refuge fund, but again, we try to keep it at a minimal so that we can fund the citywide cleanup for both spring and fall without dipping into cash reserves or maybe having to move that back into general fund to pay for that process, for that program.
Lauren, you have a question?
I have a question, will this, since the general fund is gonna be decreasing their expenses, will this affect the administrative fee that's being charged like on the park department? Will they lower that?
I've not done an analysis of the administrative fees, so I don't have a response to that question at this time.
Well, I think that should be considered, because I know that particularly the park fund is kind of suffering and hurting and looking for everything. And I thought since we were going to reduce the amount of money that the general fund's going to be using, that it possibly would affect that.
Well, the way I understand, the budget was developed without that citywide cleanup in, and so that administrative fee was calculated based on the
Okay.
existing 2016 budget. And without, further analysis on that, that's about all I can speak to
Okay.
for that.
But I just want to make sure that was taken into consideration.
I think the other point that Marcella makes is a good one, and that is the budget that the board has approved and that the departments are working under envisioned that the original rate ordinances would have been adopted at the time that they were proposed, and they would have been in effect for the full year. Doing something different is going to require then that we go back at mid-year and take a different look at this, both on the water and sewer combined fund as well as the refuse fund. The CDBSS fund has so much capital expenditure planned for the 2016 budget that it has a lot more flexibility in its fund balance because it's much larger. The refuse fund is a small fund that only has operations only in it, and so it'll probably be more impacted by the rate change on this. Even though it's a small amount, it is a small dollar fund, and so that's something we'll have to take a closer look at. I guess the other option is not to do community-wide cleanup, but I don't think that's something that we would want to recommend. So if we're going to do it, it does have to be paid for, and the choices are refuse fund where it's budgeted to be paid for, or back out of the general fund where it's not budgeted to be paid for. So either way, we'll have to revisit that decision, and but there are things that hinge upon these decisions whenever they get made. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Do we want to have a first reading?
We will.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're moving to that. I figured while she was there, we'd go ahead and get it.
No, that's fine, I
No,
just was
absolutely.
checking.
We're ready for 025, right? Council Bill 025. This,
We were still on the sewer one?
you had first reading.
Yeah, we got first reading.
Yep.
Okay, so we're just doing first reading.
Just doing
on the-
first reading on the other, and then we'll,
Okay, I'm caught up.
all right, good enough.
Council Bill 025 is an ordinance of the city of Harrisonville establishing a new rate for residential solid waste collection pursuant to Council Bill 025.
Very good. Council Bill 026.
Council Bill 026 is an ordinance amending the operating budget for the city of Harrisonville, Missouri for the fiscal year January 1, 2016 through December 31, 2016. First reading, Council Bill 026.
Welcome back.
You made a mistake there. Shouldn't have been Council Bill 224 and 25 instead of 25 and 26.
We had 23 and then 24.
We'd already done 24, and then we had, we'd already read it, and then we had a lot of discussion. I had to get caught back up the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. I figured rather than stop and read it again, we could go ahead and get the discussion.
To me, 26 dealt with the amending the budget.
That's what we're on
It's
now.
the one we're gonna start.
Yep, that's the one we're on now.
Okay.
All right, Marcella, we're ready for you again.
Okay, thank you. Oh, this has been a challenge. It's been a new experience for me, I'll tell you that. To run through the way the financial system works and to present this reappropriation amendment, for the first budget, without getting into too much of the weeds, we go through and everything that we've started, we've set aside money from 2015 for projects that are called encumbrances, they're purchase orders, so that money is set aside. And the first piece of this is to ask for that money to be rebudgeted so that it comes into the budget dollars. So when you look at financial reports, you can see the ratios change, in what has been spent and what is set aside. So that's one piece of this. Another piece is actual, what we call a reappropriation, where it's a planned project. It's a project that was not started, but it was committed to in 2015. And so we've identified those in that detailed list at the very bottom that shows you, some of those pieces. So that detailed list at the very back of your reports that run through, one column is encumbrances, one column is reappropriations, and then there's new appropriations, which general fund was the only fund that asked for new appropriations. So as we go through this, I outlined kind of where we landed in 2015. And this is all pre-audit numbers, so remember these numbers will change, as audit goes forward. And so in the first table, in the outline of that memo, it talks about the projected ending fund balance for these funds that we're looking at amending. And we see, as you start beginning fund balance for 2015 to projected ending fund balance, those numbers actually get higher, which is a good thing. We want them to get higher. We want to show that we've collected more money than we've actually spent. And that provides for these encumbrances that we're talking about now and the reappropriations for those things that we started that we didn't get finished. And it also will provide for the additional monies that we're asking for to do some stuff that we hadn't originally planned. And so as you come down, it also outlines, the next table outlines the 2016 adopted budget. The adopted budget, what we had projected to end 15 compared to where we actually did, was significantly different, So we ended 15 a lot better than what we had projected when we adopted the 2016 budget. And so because of that, our ending, as you go to the next table, our ending balances are greater than what we had budgeted. So I know there's 3 sets of tables there. One of them says this is where we are today, with where all of them is. This is what we thought we were going to be when we adopted budget last fall. This is kind of where we think that we'll be if we follow budget to a T, doing these encumbrances and reappropriations and new appropriations, and we'll still end up better than what we thought we were going to when we adopted the original budget. Clear as mud? Okay, so the next several pages talks about specifics in general fund, the electric and combined water sewer systems, the park fund, the community center, and emergency services. Again, those details talk about what's happening, where we want things, to happen for general fund, and the actual new appropriations, asking for additional monies based on what we've been told that the state audit will want, based on the needs that we have identified for the public safety building, and primarily this building. This building has got some significant challenges with its cover, its top, its hat, whatever, its top hat, whatever. You know, and so that's what the actual new monies is, you know, to be looked at, you know, going forward. So at this point, I think it might be better to start in with questions than, or if you want me to go through it in more detail as we run through this, I will be more than happy to do that. But I kind of would like to do this the way you all want to do it, not necessarily the way I would do it.
For those of you who have been on the board in the past, this is a process that we've gone through every year, and it's just kind of a difference in nomenclature, I guess, or in how it's being presented to you, and it's the difference between someone with a generalist background and someone who we actually hired an accountant now for the job, and so they have a more precise way of presenting that. But the overall process is basically the same. It's primarily a way to just bring you up to speed on all the projects that we had planned for the 2015 budget year that didn't either get finished and so we might still have some, you know, we're in the process of it, or we had some bills still outstanding at the end of the year that'll be paid in 2016, but it was a project that was really started and approved for the 2015 budget. So those would be the encumbrances, or the things that we had approved and then the board had authorized to be done, but for a variety of reasons didn't get done in that year, but it's still a priority of the city, so we're reauthorizing that. We're adding it to the current year, the 2016 year budget, but since we didn't do it last year, we still have the money in the bank because that was planned for the 2015. And then lastly, the three specific items that are new appropriations that were not considered in the 2015 budget or not approved by then, but are being brought forward because we feel that what that need is for your consideration. So the presentation of it then I think follows by fund, which might be a little more clear way to look at it. If you want to maybe just look at the general fund and then the other funds kind of follow along.
Okay.
Or you can just see if there's questions.
Which, I mean, again, I'll look to direction, however
However you'd like to present it is fine by me.
to present, you know, if you want the details, I'm more than happy to give you the details. That's one of the things that I happen to do. Okay.
Maybe just talk about the general fund and then the others have the same
Have
format.
the same
so
formats, and we'll go through. So, as you look at general fund in specifics, you know, again, we talk about where we thought we landed. You know, in general fund, we landed at a higher spot, you know, and we generated more revenue than we spent money, and so our beginning fund balances were greater than what we had projected. So in that table, it talks about the encumbrances, you know, being that $211,000, which are capital projects, they're existing projects, there may be some bills that weren't paid. That's what the encumbrances are. The reappropriations is outlined as some monies that we thought we needed to spend, and some different line items that are detailed in that report going forward. And so the actual amendment, which is listed in that table on page 2 of my report, or 3 actually, is page 76 of the packet. Talks about the beginning fund balance for 2016 coming forward as $5,488,000, which is where we are right now as an unaudited number, you know, so that number may change. We don't anticipate revenue to change at this point. We think revenue is going to come in right where we have budgeted for 2016. And the amendment for expenditures is $9,078,000, which gives us an ending balance of $4,327,000 instead of the projected $3,500,000. And so that's kind of where I want to take your focus to, is the fact that we are still, even with spending this extra money that we didn't spend last year, you know, and the additional monies that we're asking for, we're still going to land, you know, if everything works like it's supposed to, and everything's done completely in 2016, we still land in a better position than where we thought we were going to when we budgeted 2016. So that's key. And a lot of that, or a chunk of that, is the settlement from the telecom money. And I kind of talk about that in here. And the settlement from the telecom money is where I've kind of pulled as a source to pay for the reappropriations, or the new appropriations, I should say. So that money is available to spend. It's available to throw in the bank, or to use as a one-time type item. It's not ongoing money, we're not gonna get that $372,000 a year going forward by any means. So we can't say that we're going to add additional staff or do something that's going to be an ongoing expense. But we can spend it for one-time type things like the roof or the repairs to the police building and the state audit. Those three pieces are one-time pieces over a significant number of years. We don't ever want a state audit again, preferably. We won't have to put another new roof on this building for 20, 30 years like we would your house. The repairs to the police building would also be a significant, expense, but it's a repair that wouldn't have to be done again, for another 30 years. So that's where this is. So if you look at that 2016 amendment column, you can see the difference between what we had budgeted and where we have projected to end in the amendment. And that right-hand column where it shows those differences, that number is higher, and that goes forward for each of the funds in that particular format. So it outlines the specifics on what each fund is asking for, and then where we have projected that it's going to land.
Now, if I'm following this right, the new projected ending balance, does that reflect these items, the additional items that we need to pull out of there?
Correct.
Okay, so that is without, so the.
That's assuming that you're going to approve everything I've asked for.
Correct.
And so that's where.
So the difference of what we have left over is, that's the number we can look at and say, I mean, like I said, I know it's subject to, it's not an exact number, but
Right.
it's, there's some give or take there. Okay, very good.
But that's still, it's quite a bit higher.
It's a nice number, it's a good time to do some maintenance when you have extra money.
Right.
Now, on the reading through on the city hall, it discussed something about the gutters. Is that something else that we want to look at along with the roof at the same time, or?
Kip's not here, but the way I understood him when he put this together, that's a complete, that's the reason why I used the word top hat, it's the whole thing, it's the hat itself along with the rims,
Okay.
that's in a typical top hat. So that's going to cover, our gutters and some of the repairs that we need to make to the side of the building,
Foundation board.
and different things like that to keep the integrity
Very good.
of the foundation from
So
deteriorating.
it's a little more than just a roof with that.
Right.
Good, good. Okay.
And again, that's an estimate, so it's, well, and you all will see that like you do everything else as far as the contract is concerned, so that will have to come before it's approved.
So on this brick on the new police station, do we have any idea why it failed, and was it something in the design, was it something in the brick itself, was it something in the way it was applied? The building's not that old, and to already have something this major pop up is kind of, you wonder, what created this issue?
I can address that at least partially. When it was actually designed, it was designed for using a standard size brick. Previous city administrator thought it would look better with king size brick, and that sort of led to the way the architect designed it. Standard size brick would have fit nice and even. It caused some problems with the columns going up because it was a different type of brick. The king size brick, they also didn't make I don't know what they call it now, they used to call them Z brick, it was just the face of the brick, it wasn't the whole brick. So we had to compromise on and cut all those bricks. When the contractor told him that it was gonna have problems, his response in email was just, it's your job to make it work.
Wow.
So
how, okay, I've got another question, and I don't know who can chime in on this since Chip's not here. Say I was building something like this, and this is what was approved, and I go with a different brick, would that pass code?
yes.
Okay, I didn't know if that was
Yeah, it's
making
just
a
a
change
face,
like
it's
that.
not a structural item.
Okay,
So if that entire brick front fell off, the building is still gonna stand and,
because it's a steel frame underneath,
it's got a steel skin behind it. So it is truly, and they're separated by, I don't remember if it's 2 inches or 3 inches, so it's not technically attached to the building.
Is there any, is it possible that, was there any shifting of the building that could have created this as well?
I don't
or
think
just
so.
simply the fact that it's the wrong kind of brick for the design?
It wasn't designed for this size brick.
Okay.
Is water getting behind the roof?
Yes, and that's why you'll see the white staining on it.
Mhm.
That's actually the water pushing out, like they said it was lime, it's coming through the brick.
Alkali.
So that means there's probably black mold also to do.
No,
No.
Is water actually getting into the building, or is it just?
No,
getting
it's
behind-
just getting in behind the brick.
Okay. Okay. Who was the general contractor on that, since they're no longer?
It was a company called Zoner Hansen out of Tennessee. They are not in business anymore.
Why?
The two partners split, and then shortly after that, they folded up the business.
So we have no warranty, is that what you're saying?
Warranty had expired.
We're past that
Yeah.
point.
All right. I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. So that's, I mean, that's the request for general fund, and then when you flip the pages to the electric fund, it's primarily encumbrances that we were looking for in the electric fund. The reappropriations for electric is only the $102,000, which talks about the north substation that I think Keith alluded to a little bit earlier, and the repairs and maintenance and stuff that we've got identified that we want to do over in the old buildings. So as part of the reappropriation piece for the electric fund. And again, it come out, you know, when you look at that second table where it talks about 2016, what was actually budgeted, and then we pull these amendment figures in here, we still have a resulting ending fund balance that is greater by that $486,000 than what we thought when we put budget together in 2016. So that's the theme going through this, you know, you'll see that, you know, and water and wastewater just going forward. And water and wastewater is kind of key when we're talking about an $800 and some odd $1,000 repair to a digester, on whether we want to borrow that money, whether we want to use fund balance or existing cash for that money. You know, going forward with that, you
Can
can.
I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do we still have the $900,000 in the water tower fund?
I would have to look, I don't know. Mike?
There's water, there's monies set aside in the, it's not in a separate fund, it's all identified in the water and wastewater combined fund. So those were part of our capital improvement plan, and we had set aside some of the fund balance. The biggest amount of fund balance is, of course, set aside for our operating reserve, and then the second biggest part is our debt service reserve, because we have the debt on the sewer improvements and sewer plant improvements that have been done over the years. And then we also had some designated reserves that's up to the board every year to determine that.
Well, I'm asking that because is there any way we can use that money to fix the digester without borrowing money?
Yes, those funds are available for the operation and the maintenance of the things in the combined water and sanitary sewer fund. So the board has the discretion to rearrange the priorities between water and wastewater, as long as there's money available to meet the operations, meet the reserve requirements, and maintain our.
So it would be smarter for us to try to look at that instead of getting a loan?
Well, that's the
Is
first,
there an advantage
the
to
first thing
getting a loan?
the first thing we would do would be to look at what our cash balances are, where we think we'll be at the end of the year, you know, after we go through this. But part of that process is recognizing what encumbrances we have, those are obligations that we already have to take care of. And secondly, the reappropriations, and those are obligations that we had planned to take care of, but we haven't fully committed to yet. But if we're going to do those, then we need to account for that money. You know, money's fungible, so we can spend water tower money on sewer digester, but we can only spend it one time, so,
Well,
you know, we have to
hopefully that's all we
kind
have
of
to do is
take care of
spend
all that
one
kind of stuff.
Well, I know you can
But
just.
yeah, but our first place to look before we went to the capital market would be to look and see what kind of fund balances we have.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
So-
Payment, I don't think
Well, neither do I, and, you know, the city's done a good job for the most part, with the exception of utilities, which have their own special capital needs, of staying out of debt, and so, that's kind of the, goal. That's a good thing. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine, thank you.
Question, do we have any idea from the auditors what the projected loss on the ambulance fund is gonna be this year?
No, and I think I talked about that a little bit, is if you know, as far as the ambulance, because every year we've got significant write-offs that we are required to do for the ambulance fund, because we only get so much money from Medicare and Medicaid and the insurance companies, and so that's one of those things that I know is definitely an adjusting entry that will happen, because that's a calculated number that they put together every year. So there may not be, you know, much money left in the ambulance.
We don't have any idea that yet.
I would guess that it would be similar to what it was last year, but whether or not it's, you know, significantly higher or lower, I would not venture to
Well,
that.
I know it comes as a shock one year for the park fund. And that's one of the things that I keep thinking about, and we've got that yet to come, and I was just wondering how close we're getting it.
Yeah, they've not provided any adjusting entries to us yet,
Okay.
after they finished their field work the end of last night, so. So the park fund, it runs through again with with expenditures being less than what we had for revenue. You know, so we come out ahead in what we thought we were gonna land for the park fund, and even when we put these encumbrances together, which is just a small amount of $457, it's, and that may be monies that can be looked at that we don't necessarily have to spend, or we've already spent them because they were just that. They were bills that were put into the system in December, and they actually didn't hit, you know, until the 2016 cash. So the park fund ended up better than where they had planned. The community center was going to be significantly less, you know, when we started some of the budgets last year. And the biggest reason why it's less is because they had some challenges with some revenues, you know, didn't meet projections, but it still cost us that money to do those programs. And so, that is a concern. I talked to Mr. Deal and the assistant park director on that process, and kind of hedging a plan to run through 2016 as we go forward, to kind of know that we need to watch that. And Alderman Coleman mentioned a while ago about the administrative charges and some different things, you know, so we may look at that and talk about that and figure out if there's any options there as we go forward for the community center. And again, the encumbrances are really small, they're $550, that's all they've asked for. And those are a couple of projects that were identified that we may even look and decide that we're not going to do this year. So that's just kind of a work in progress, you know, but it's a minor amount. And then EMS, I think the projected ending fund balance may be not $257,000 because of that adjusting entry that will have to be done. You know, that I could see where it would be easy for an adjustment for that bad debt or those write-offs that we have to do could be, you know, upwards of that kind of money, just based on the sheer volume that EMS has produced. And Larry's reports have been, you know, that there's been more runs. You know, so yeah, maybe we've collected a little bit more, but again, when you collect a little more, you may have to write off a little more because you only get so much money from those federal agencies. But it did land out, you know, a whole lot higher than what we thought it was going to when we budgeted based right now, based on these numbers, you know, than what was originally budgeted in 2016 when you adopted the budget last year. So the ordinance asks for, you know, this amendment, its revenues maintain the same that was approved in the 2016 budget, and the encumbrances, or the expenditures that are listed in that ordinance are outlined in this detailed report that's attached. It gives you actual specific line items that will be changed for each one of those sites.
Question on looking at the additional items that we have, the new appropriations. If we got half of Commercial Street paved last year, and I know we were gonna have some funds available this year to apply towards doing the other half, so we would still be short. Do we need some type of reappropriation if we decide that we want to try to fund that, or is that, I mean, how will that work as far as, I mean, if we have extra money, or we look like we look like we have a little more because of that settlement, that's another area that I think would be worthwhile to look at is finishing the rest of that road, so we don't have to worry about future, catastrophes under that road. I mean, if it's milled and overlaid, then it is good for quite a few years, and it's, again, like I say, when you've got a little extra money, it's the time to look at maintenance issues, and that's one that, like I say, do we need a reappropriation for that, or a new appropriation, or would that be something that?
That'd be a new appropriation. Basically, when we got to that point, that'd be just a regular budget amendment.
Okay.
And I think that what Marcella has explained as far as when we get the adjusting increase in the what kind of write-offs that we're going to have on the debt of the ambulance, if that impacts,
Right.
because the general fund basically carries the reserve for some of those funds that don't have fund balances of their own. So if that impacts that, then those are things we have to take care of first. But when we get that additional information in, we'll have a clearer idea of where our balances are going to be, and then we can look at those kind of things. But we can still go ahead and kind of come up with what that might be.
Right,
Right. And get some numbers ready and that type of thing. So,
Very good.
anything else?
Questions?
Comments? Any other way I can do that?
What? All right,
Okay,
well, thank you.
thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to suspend the ruling and move Council Bill 026 to the second reading.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion from Alderman Stafford and a second from Alderman Milner.
Alderman Stoll,
Aye.
Alderman Coburn,
Aye.
Alderman Long,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Dahlman,
Aye.
Alderman Bowman,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Stafford.
Aye.
Council Bill 026 is an ordinance amending the operating budget of the city of Harrisonville, Missouri for the fiscal year January 1, 2016 through December 31, 2016. Second reading, Council Bill 026.
Alderman Dahlman,
Aye.
Alderman Stoll,
Aye.
Alderman Bowman,
Aye.
Alderman Coburn,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Long,
Aye.
Alderman Stafford.
Aye.
And Council Bill 026 becomes ordinance 03355. Alderman committee reports. Alderman Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is Chris Steele still in the room?
I'm behind the pole.
I can't see. I wanted just to acknowledge to you what a great job Park Board Chairman Brent Carruthers did Saturday at the town hall meeting. He gave a good report to the attendees, and it was good information.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Alderman Dahl. Nothing tonight. Alderman Coburn.
First, I'd like to say, long live the First Lady Nancy. I think we all want to keep her in our thoughts. Number two, I'd like to know if any thought has been given to coming up with a full and fair disclosure for the utility bills. It's come to my knowledge that as of the first of the year, the city of Peculiar has changed their utility bills, and they've got a website that shows how they're explaining a little bit more what the money's going for when you pay your utility bills. And it's kind of a pet project with me. I'd like to see something done in this area, please.
Alderman Dickerson.
No, I have nothing.
Alderman Long. Alderman Stoll. Alderman Stafford.
Good job,
Thank you.
That's it. Mr. Colvin.
Yeah, a couple of things, just a reminder, it is apparently now about a month before the city's municipal election, and so political signs have started sprouting. That is kind of the occasion then for us to remind candidates and supporters and well-wishers and whoever puts signs up that there are requirements on the signs where they can be placed. First of all, get the property owner's permission. Sometimes we have people who are overly exuberant and put signs out wherever, and if you don't have the permission of the property owner, that in the long run doesn't do anybody any good. Secondly, they have to be on the private property, not in the public right-of-way, not on, it has to be on the private property, not out in the right-of-way. And so signs that are in the right-of-way will be removed. And there are regulations as to the size and type of signs, and then after the election, there'll be another reminder that please remove the signs after they serve a very useful purpose. Also got a report, just wanted to keep everybody up to date on the recruitment process for the city administrator's position. The recruitment advisor reports that they're getting applicants in, qualified applicants in, and I believe that's open through the end of the week, so if you haven't, March 12th. So if you haven't already, get busy, get your Master's of Public Administration and user experience and sign up.
That's it. All right, I guess it's my turn. I wanted to bring up tonight that there's times when there's been some criticism of decisions made up here. And I ran some numbers this weekend as I was looking over the change in the water rate, and I'm very pleased with able to bring that number down. When I ran some numbers from what the original ordinance that was brought before us and what we had the first reading on that tonight, over the 20-year life of the payment, it would have resulted in $2 million more being paid out on that project from the people of this town. So taking a little extra time and pushing back a little bit and challenging to see if we can do better, we did do better. We did get a better deal. We did get what I feel is the best deal that we could get. I did, like I said, I did speak with DNR, and I did ask them, I said, is there any way that this could have been done with our current rates? And she said no. So I had it straight from the horse's mouth, no. And she expressed that, again, our history with the other SRF funding played a role in this. The fact that we were diligent enough to come back and ask to look at this another time and say, we gave good justification for why our rates would work. I'm not saying their rate structure is totally wrong, but I mean, we had good justification for why we needed the rate structure that we did. So I think it shows that sometimes it's not a bad thing to step back and take time and make sure that you are making the right decision, because we need to always remember, this is not our money we're up here playing with. This is everybody else in this town's money, and we need to make sure that we are watching over it very carefully, because they take it very seriously. So, like I said, I'm very pleased with the turnout, and I'm glad we were able to do that. And that is all I have this evening. Mr. Max, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yeah, a couple quick ones. I was a little lost with the rate structure. That was delayed until next meeting, is that right?
The approval of the rates?
Yes.
We had first reading, and for the water, we have to have public hearing. Jerry, you want to jump in the rest? I don't have the notes in front of me. We have
The water rates have to go through a public meeting where we are able to justify why the water rates have to be at what we propose for the minimum and the overage rates.
We're also gonna have a public meeting on the capital facilities plan, on why we chose the approach we did with the ozone over other types of treatment process, and then the environmental is a public hearing.
All on the same day,
It's gonna be all on the same evening,
April 18th,
April 18th at 5:30,
where at?
right here.
Okay.
It'll be part of the same night that the work session, it'll be held at that same time.
Okay.
It's not a meeting that has to have all of the board there, it's just a public meeting and a public hearing.
Okay. And then just so I make sure I have it right, did you vote, did the board vote on that first reading?
When you have a first reading,
You
it's
don't have
not
to
a
vote.
You vote when there's a second.
how
You
it
have
makes
to, they
that.
have to be read twice, and if we do it in the same night, that's when we ask for the motion to suspend the ruling, and then the members all vote, the board votes whether they want to suspend the ruling. If they vote yes, then we move it to the second reading, and then they can vote on the second reading. If we don't vote to suspend it, it goes to the next meeting, or in this case, the meeting that we have designated for the second reading.
Gotcha.
Is that clear?
I'm all clear, yep.
All right.
Thanks.
Anything else? Commissioner Gibbs, thanks for explaining that, I appreciate that. And I see nothing else before us, so, Ivan, if you can.
I move that the Board of Alderman go into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the revised statutes of Missouri, section 610.021, 1, to discuss legal actions and any confidential or privileged communication between the city and its attorney.
Second. Need a second. Second from Alderman Dickerson.
Alderman Bowman? Aye. Alderman Dahlman? Aye. Alderman Coburn?
Aye.
Alderman Milner? Aye. Alderman Dickinson?
Aye.
Alderman Long?
Aye.
Alderman Stoll?
Aye.
Alderman Stafford?
Aye.
And we are adjourned to executive session.